I'm Amy Dolan, and this is the Feeding People podcast. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Feeding People podcast. As always, I'm your host, Amy Dolan, and I'm so glad that you could join us at the table for another episode of this show, all about the magic that happens around the table as people share food with each other. On today's episode, you'll hear my conversation with Chi Okwu, who is one of my absolute dearest friends and who was also the very first guest on this podcast just a little over a year ago. It was so great to catch up with Chi and talk about all that's happened in this past year. Specifically, her recent launch of The Next Question, a web series imagining how expansive racial justice can be. And I just love what Chi and her co-producers are doing with the show. And in today's conversation, we talk about so many of the themes that emerged from Chi's show, The Next Question. We talk about race. We talk about our experiences as a white woman and a Black woman in friendship. And let me tell you, Chi is just one of the wisest people I know. She shares so much knowledge in this episode. You're just going to absolutely love it. And you know, Chi and I have been friends for many years now, and we have had a million conversations around a million tables with so much good food. And our relationship has been a journey, and I'm so thrilled and proud of where it is today and where it will go in the future. And in today's conversation, we talk about our friendship specifically as a white woman and a Black woman, and I really hope that you enjoy it. So here it is, my conversation with Chi Okwu. Chi. Hello.
Hi.
Oh my gosh, this is just too much.
I know, I'm back.
You're back.
Yeah, I'm back.
I'm so happy you're back today. You were our very first episode on Feeding People.
It's crazy.
And I credit this entire show to you.
Oh my gosh. I'm not taking that much credit.
We were talking about doing a show, and then a year ago you were like, you should do that. You should launch at Thanksgiving. People will be in their cars. They'll be on planes. They'll want to listen to a show about food. You should do that. And I was like, I should do that. That's right. And that's what like kicked our butts into gear, and we did it. And, you know, guys, if you're listening, you can just credit Chi Okwu to being able to hear all of this goodness. Do you like all this attention?
I mean, it's my favorite thing. No, not really. But I am so excited that you did this. It's been awesome.
Thank you.
Love listening and just catching up on stuff. So this is great. I'm so glad you did it.
Thank you. Thanks so much. You're one of my very best friends, and I'm so glad you're back here at the table tonight. You're at the table a lot with me, I always think if people could hear us right now.
Oh my gosh.
It's probably better that they don't. But tonight.
So many amazing things happen.
Tonight you'll get to hear us. So I'm thrilled you're here. This is episode 31. You were here for the first one, so we have a lot to catch up on. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's start first with what's like a really great meal you've had lately, like a meaningful table gathering meal you've had.
Yeah, I think, I was thinking about that, and so this year's been full of a lot of change, and I feel like there's not like one moment I can remember, but I think what I've been so grateful for is the moments I've had around the table with people like you. I always say, I feel like I've really, I don't know if this sounds bad, but I've kind of curated my friends.
Yes.
So
yes.
I feel like I've gone from like having like a ton of people with like really kind of shallow relationships to like a few people that I feel like really committed to and invested in. And I feel like this past year, I've spent a lot of time with those people. Like I think about, just random meals we've had together over sushi and martinis, and, where big things have happened or big realizations about life and what I should do and really processing some things. And so I feel like that's been so meaningful for me to really have people walk with me in my, through some of the big things in life. You know, I changed jobs. I was trying to figure out what I was doing with my life. And, you know, I think those meals like mean so much to me now because there's so much power in those moments when you're just sitting there and being really open and raw, and you have a friend like, you know, just share with you something about yourself that you didn't even know or see, or you just had a hard time seeing. I remember you specifically one meal we had, and you just said, you know, you need to leave your job and you need to think about what you're going to do next. And you just need to do that. And it was something I knew, but I was afraid to say it. And, you know, we were just sitting across from each other and you said that, and it was a turning point for me. I just got really serious about, okay, I have to step out through fear and do something courageous. And I ended up not having to leave my job before I found a job, but in my mind and in my heart, I'd let go of that job. And there was something about letting go that really allowed me to be open to new opportunities that I don't think I would have been as open to. So I think those are the moments, you know, it's like, yes, the food is there, but it's like the space that's created. It's just so powerful, and it's been so meaningful for me. And I really don't think I could have made it through the year without those moments with, you know, people like you and, you know, our friend Erica, who's also been on the show. And I know you guys talked a lot about me. So shout out to Erica. But, you know, they're really sacred moments. And I'm so grateful for that. So I don't know. That's not answering a specific
I love it.
meal,
No,
but
I love it.
It's been really powerful for me.
I love it. And I love what you said about curating friendships. We need to do that. We really do. And I feel like, I don't know about you, but like, I just didn't learn that until I had to. Yeah. Maybe that's how it goes. Like, until I realized, wait a minute, not every friend is equal.
Yes.
And so then what?
Yeah.
Like, you break up with your friends? Do you can I just like go up to someone now and be like, oh my gosh, we should be friends? Actually, I do occasionally now.
You're so good at that too.
But I mean, it is like my problem though is like allowing too many people. And it's like, you can have a lot of people in your life, but there have to be like a very select few who really know like the ugly parts, the good parts, all of it. And of course, like you're one of those. And I don't know. I love that you said that. We should use that more, like curating friendships and even just like checking in with each other. Like, how's your group going? Do you have close people who know you? Are you getting rid of the ones who are bringing you down?
Or who are more draining? Cause I had to look at like, who are the people that when I left, I felt energized by them and I felt like filled up because there was a long period of time where I did a lot of things out of obligation, you know, where I felt like I had to be around all these people because I was like helping them or they needed me, which is not a bad thing. But I think you have to balance it all because at some point you get to a place where you have nothing left to give. So I really had to look at who are the people that I walk away from and I feel energized and empowered and excited and challenged in really good ways, and how do I make time to be with those people? Because time is a precious resource. We don't have a lot of it, especially I think the older we get, our lives just get filled with all these things. So the time that I have to spend with friends is really limited. It's not like when I was in college where that's all we did.
That's all you did, right?
I miss those days, but you know, if I'm going to spend time with people, I have to be really thoughtful about that. And, so I think it's been a really good decision for me. And I'm also an introvert, so I have very limited energy. So I think for me, my personality has just been really helpful. And I think this past year just kind of, I was able to see the value of that and just how meaningful and powerful that is for me.
Yes, I see that. I can see that in your life. I can see it. Yeah. You can just see, I can see all the good friends who surround you.
Yes. And you being one of the very best.
Oh my gosh. I feel like that's what's been helpful for me too, is like I started to pay attention to when I left situations, did I feel good or did I feel bad.
Yeah.
And I always feel like I'm so like in my brain, I need like a justification. Oh, I feel bad. It's these reasons. And so then that means I can work on the friendship or I can spend more time, whatever. And it's like, I feel like I just got to a point where I was like, I just feel bad consistently.
Yeah.
I don't need a reason. Let's move on from that.
Right.
Oh, I just feel good when I'm with that. Like, just like what you said, how can I prioritize? Right.
And it doesn't mean that you're eliminating everyone who makes you.
No.
But it does mean that there is a balance, and you have to, you kind of have to look at your life like it's a pie, and you only have so many pieces of that. So who are you giving those pieces to, and and how big of a piece are you giving them? So it's been really meaningful for me.
I love that. Okay, so you mentioned a lot of change that's happened in your life since we talked on the first episode. I want to get into all that. Okay.
Oh boy.
So you have a new job. Let's start there.
I do.
Tell us about your new job.
Yeah, so I am now the executive director for a nonprofit, and we focus on maternal and child health issues. So we really look at disparities in health that are based on racial and economic issues. So I'm just 2 months in, really new, but I love it. I love it. I feel like it's been an opportunity for me to bring a lot of my strengths to the table, and just really excited to be able to work on some really big issues, especially, looking at disparities in maternal mortality rates, in Illinois and really in our country, because we Black women are, disproportionately affected by this. So it's something that's been really close to my heart. I'm really passionate about, and I just feel very privileged to be able to give the majority of my time to this, so
it's incredible. Like, it's like so many of things of who you are, like so many parts of who you are and your experience, your education just like came together.
I know. It's crazy.
It's so cool. And you're just like the biggest boss ever. And I mean, next stop governor. But
oh my gosh. No politics for me.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's been so fun to watch it all unfold.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
Okay. And then you just moved.
I did.
How was that?
It was a lot. I lived in the same place for like 10 years.
Oh my gosh.
It was like a really big change.
It's a really big change.
Yeah. So it's been really exciting. And now we're neighbors officially.
Oh, yeah, we are.
Which is awesome.
We've come a long way, Chi Chi. I mean, did you ever imagine when you first met me, not only that we'd be neighbors, but that you'd enjoy that?
Yeah, no, I did it.
I wouldn't guess so.
But now, it's like the best thing. And so, it's so great. I can walk over to your place in like 5 minutes.
I love it.
It's awesome.
I love it. Yeah. You do. I'm your cat sitter.
Yes.
I mean, it's awesome being neighbors. I love this. All right. So you got a new job, you moved, and you launched a new web series called The Next Question.
Yes.
I mean, what? Because I had like
all this
extra
spare time. I mean,
were you like, I need a hobby, so this is what I'm doing?
I know. It's like, I feel like it's one of those things where like sort of it's like when it rains, it pours, you know? So there's been a lot of great things, but it's been a lot of work. But I mean, I'm so proud of what we were able to create. And again, it's something I'm really passionate about, is creating space to have conversations about issues surrounding race, because I think it's so much of what is breaking apart our country. A lot of that is like at the foundation of our brokenness. And so, and to be able to have some conversations with some good friends of mine and bringing in like some crazy, amazing people.
Oh my gosh, your guests. We're going to get to them in a minute. Your guests are insane.
I still don't even know how we were able to get them. But yeah, I mean, I'm really excited about it, and we got some great responses, but it's out there. You can watch anytime, and we're just hoping it's an opportunity for people to maybe start their journey or continue their journey, depending on where you are, that it will inspire more learning. This is not something that we believe is like it should be contained in one episode. We really hope that, I've talked to some people, they're like, yeah, it's great. I walked away with like a reading list or things I want to like research. And that makes me so happy, because that's really like the reason that we did that. So
It's so good. Okay, we're going to get into all of it in a minute, but I love the episodes have meant so much to me, and it's so much fun to see you hosting. You're just so great as our
thanks.
Jenny and Austin, of course.
They're my wonderful co-hosts. They're awesome.
But you're fantastic. And it's been really, really good and really special. And you know, this show specifically, Feeding People Podcast, like what we're trying to do is just remind people of the magic that happens when you gather together around a table, and the connection, the human and sacred connections that can happen as you share food together, as you sit across the table from each other. And I think the next question is such a great tool. Like if you wanted to watch an episode and then like sit down with a friend at a table over a meal and some nice wine, like you could really like dig into some good conversation. And so I highly recommend that. Like again, with like a good friend or a trusted partner, someone that like you don't have to like see eye to eye. I think actually the conversation would be really great if you don't have like exactly the same perspective in the world. But you should sit, in my opinion, like you should sit down with someone that you trust and that you're somewhat safe with, and have a really, really good conversation about what you saw in an episode.
Yeah, love that. And that's our hope. Like we just hope that people are doing this in community, because I think one of the issues, one of the reasons we struggle so much with race is that we end up talking about these things with people that are just like us all the time. So white people are always talking to white people about this. Black people are always talking, and we stay in our corners and we don't have the opportunity to really talk to each other in ways that are really constructive. And I think one of the things we were hoping to do is to really model what this is like to talk about and to be okay with the discomfort of it. And because it's not comfortable. And there are times when, we don't feel like we want to keep going, but we have to. Like if this is something that's a value for us, we really have to be able to push through that and get comfortable with being uncomfortable, So we hope that people watch that in community together, and that they choose to learn with each other, because I think that's the only way we actually get better, and we can start to really do the work of repairing the harm that's been done for the last couple hundred years.
Yes. That would be great.
Yeah, I know.
Good goal. Yes. Okay, so I want to talk about two episodes specifically that have really like been sticking with me, and we're like sitting at a real table today. We just ate lasagna together.
It was so good.
Thank you.
Good.
It was crispy around the edges, but I feel like, I don't know.
I like the crispy parts.
Okay, thank you. So like, let's talk about a couple of the episodes while we're here at the table. First of all, you interviewed the Brene Brown.
Yeah.
And asked amazing questions.
Oh, thank you.
Specifically about her research and how her research and her books apply to Black women and women of color, right? And it was awesome. It was so good. You mentioned in the interview with Brene that Black women often enter into spaces with armor. They have to, right? Because most or all spaces, would you say?
A lot of spaces.
Yeah. A lot of spaces are not physically safe and emotionally safe, right? And so, of course, like Black women have to enter into spaces everywhere in order to not only like keep themselves together, right? But like keep their jobs, keep their income, protect their families, keep their bodies safe, all of that. So when we talk about vulnerability and like really asking people in general to like share vulnerably about their lives, I, as a white woman, of course, I'm not thinking about the armor that Black women walk into every space with. And I'm asking for vulnerability, right? That's just something I really believe in. And specifically with like Sunday Supper Church, what I'm trying to create are like tables where people can have real sacred connections with each other. And often in Sunday Supper Church, when I notice people aren't being vulnerable, in my white brain, I have all these reasons why. The reasons I choose not to be vulnerable. And I literally have never thought about when I'm as the pastor, when I'm asking Black women in our space to be vulnerable and they're choosing not to, it could be because of their own, they can't.
Yeah.
They risk way too much.
Yeah.
And that has never occurred to me. And I feel like I need to, obviously, like I need to switch. I need to like rethink about how I ask people, specifically Black women, to show up at tables, at our church table, and be vulnerable. I don't know. So like, what was that experience like for you? Like when you were talking about that and Brene was talking about vulnerability, like what did that mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think I'll start with this. I think, I'm also a big fan of Brene Brown, and her work has been really transformative for me. But I think, one of the reasons we're excited to talk to her is because, there are reasons why, I think, and for me particularly, so I'm a daughter of immigrants. I'm a Black woman. I grew up in the South. And so a lot of spaces that I grew up in or lived in and engaged in, I have been, the only or the other, and marginalized in a lot of the spaces. And so, you're always trying to say, okay, how do I succeed in the world? And succeeding in the world is not just like, oh, I'm going to be, like the CEO or whatever, but it's just like, can I get this job? Can I get in the door, with a name like, my full name's Chi Okwu. And, so immediately, even when people are just reading my resume, they're already thinking all these things about me. But as you're navigating all these different spaces, you encounter a lot of different things. You encounter a lot of racism, a lot of sexism, because specifically for women of color, we're living at the intersection of that. And so it's kind of crazy, like how much you actually process. Like, if I actually really sat down and processed all the things I experienced in a day, it would be very overwhelming for me. So I don't do that. But every now and then something really big happens and you're like, oh, okay. But so when you think about that, going through that, and then you're trying to explain that to other people so that they can understand a little bit of your life. And for the most part, especially if it's, a white person, they're not going to understand it because it's so different. Like we live in two different worlds, right? And the best thing you can do in that moment is to say, I don't understand what you experienced, but I believe you.
Yes.
But that doesn't happen.
Said that, sorry to interrupt you.
No.
Yeah. Brene said that, that was like, I felt like that gave me like such a, she was responding to like what she experienced in Austin's book, right?
Yeah.
Like when a Black woman shares her experience with you, as a white woman, I have like two options. I can say, you're either bullshitting me or what you're saying is true. And if it's true, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
I mean, that was just like, okay, great. I know how to like move forward in my life. Like, yes.
But the reality is most people will say, you're lying or you're making this up or this is a figment of your imagination.
But like, why? That's what I don't understand.
Because I think that, like she said, like the alternative is dealing with pain. And I don't think that it's hard for white people or people in majority culture, people of privilege to deal with that because at that point it's like, well, I have to step into something that makes me uncomfortable and I have to deal with the fact that the world is set up to keep me comfortable at the expense of of hurting someone else, and because I think, again, I'm not white, so I don't always know what this is like, but I think that nobody wants to think that their life, that the comfort that they experience causes someone else pain.
Sure.
But I think we have to wrestle with that. And it's just painful. There's no other way to get around it. And I think that, but so many people are like, I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to feel guilty. I don't want to feel that. So it's easier for me to say, you're making this up or it really can't be that bad, because if I believe you, then I'm now responsible to do something about this, And so, and I think that's hard, I think that's really challenging, but it's also, I think, part of the problem that we don't want to wrestle with that pain.
Do you think too, like, I feel like, I mean, you're one of my very best friends. And so when you tell me something that happens, I instantly believe you out of relationship. Like it's my love and our relationship, shared experiences and years together. Then it would never occur to me that you would lie to me about your experience. Do you think that's it too?
It's not lying, but it's what I choose to tell you and what I don't tell you.
Right.
And even for us, like it's a journey. Like it took me a long time. For any white person, any white women specifically, it takes me a long time before I actually will feel like I can trust you enough to tell you something, because the pain that you experience when somebody you think is your friend, when they don't believe you, is so incredibly hurtful that it's like this, I don't want to just do that just because, so even with you, like by the time we got to the point where I could tell you those things, you may not have known this, but you'd gone through the test, and like there were things that I was like, it's like you open up a little bit and I'm like, okay, she hears me, she sees me. So she is now a safe person, but I don't do that with everybody. And I don't do that right off the bat.
Of course.
So
how could you?
Yeah. Like, it's just, you're always like, but again, like that's not where I want to be. I want to be in a place where I'm like, oh yeah, I can just trust this person. And I know I can open up and they're going to believe me. But that's just not the case, So I think, when I was, reading Brené's work and she's just talking about, stepping out there and being vulnerable and all those things. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't get that. Like, I can't just do that. Like, I've got to keep this on. And these are just my friendships. Let's not even talk about like the workplace and like all the places where I'm like, and just engaging in the world in general. So it seems to be, it's like, I can't get to that place of like wholehearted living that she talks about without everyone doing the work,
Oh, that's so good.
That's like the challenge. So if other people don't do the work, that, I have to stay behind this, so that I don't die, whether emotionally or, actually physically, so, and I think that was like a beautiful part of the conversation, is talking about how we all have to do this work. Like, our wholehearted living is all connected to one another.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, that's really what we're talking about in general, is the fact that none of us can live in our full selves. We can't all experience our full humanity if we're not all trying to do this together. So there can't be one group that's saying, we're going to get to live fully human, and you're not, because really even that group is not fully human, because we're all connected to each other. And it's like we're cutting off a part of our body. So I think it's realizing that we're all connected, and that when we harm each other, we're really just harming ourselves at the same time. And so if we really want to enter into this wholehearted living, which I think is a beautiful thing, that we all have work to do to get there. So
I love that so much. We all have to do that work. Like, wholehearted living can't be just individual, especially for a white woman. Like, especially, it reminds me of like when we think, people think like patriarchy is good for men.
Right.
It's not.
No.
Like, patriarchy is not good for anyone.
No.
I think some men want us to believe that patriarchy is good for them and everyone, but it's not. And that's the thing, right? Like, I love that so much, Chi. I want to think about how we're all connected. And even as I'm thinking about my own wholehearted living, like how I'm doing work so that everyone's living that life.
Yeah.
How then do white and Black women come to tables together and be vulnerable? I mean, that's just like a giant question, right? But like, I think there's, and again, I don't know that I have the answer for this, but I think that there's an individual piece where I think, kind of like what I talked about, is that I think everybody, you have to give it time, and you have to
I think for white women, you have to understand the history.
Yes.
Because I think a lot of times white women will get offended by the fact that, they show up to a space and they're like, well, I'm trying. I don't understand why but you have to understand like where we're coming from and all of the other people that have harmed us before that. So, it's understanding that the history and one of our guests is on the show is Rachel Cargill, and she does a lecture called Unpacking White Feminism. And I think, I think it's great. And she mainly talks to white women because I think at the core, like when we think about feminism, we think, oh, that's for everybody, but it's not.
It's not.
The foundation of that was very racist. It was that white women were really fighting for themselves and not really looking at how other groups were being fighting. And I think they didn't actually care. But there were Black women, there were women of color that were a part of that fight.
Helping him.
Yeah, realizing fully that they weren't even going to experience any freedom. Yeah. There's a book, and I'm blanking on the name right now, but it talks about the role of white women slave owners. So like oftentimes we think of like the slave master, like a man, but in this book, they talk about how the women were some of the most cruel, the cruelest ones, you know? So there's a lot of history. This isn't just, we're not just talking about one moment in time. And I think we're all responsible for understanding our history. No one gets off the hook there. So I think, for white women and Black women and women of color to come together, we all have to understand the history that we're bringing to that table. Because even if we don't think that, oh, well, I'm not, I didn't do any of that. But we all bring whatever baggage is, we all carry that trauma within us. And so we have to understand that. And I think, so many times, we have all these diversity classes and workshops and all this stuff that, people of color are doing. And people just assume that we know that stuff. But it's like, we're studying this too. So I think, again, it comes to everybody doing the work to show up at that table, because you can't just show up there, especially collectively. We can't just show up there and think that everything that's happening is happening in a vacuum. It's happening with all of this history behind us. So I think for us to truly come together, we all have to be committed to studying and to understanding our history and the harm that's been done on all sides, so that we can really engage in truthful conversations, and recognize, our privilege, our, the pain that we bring to the table, all of those things. And then I think we can begin to actually engage in some constructive and healing conversations. But until then, I think it's really hard because we're speaking completely different languages,
Do you think it's possible?
Some days I do, some days I don't, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean.
Right. Totally.
Yeah. I think there are spaces where I get really encouraged. Like, honestly, the conversation we had with Brene, I thought was very encouraging. But then, you see things like, all these like white evangelical Christian women voting for Trump, and you're like, oh, okay. Is this actually something that we can fix? Or are we always going to choose our whiteness over unity, And so, yeah, I don't know. I mean, some days I have a lot of hope, some days I don't, but I think that's just the journey, right? Like, I don't think that we can actually be 100% hopeful because it's hard. Like what we're talking about, it's hard. Like if it was easy, we would have fixed it already. Right. But there's actual resistance against this. Yes. And so I hope that we can, because I want future generations to experience something better. But I think until we're actually willing to deal with our sins as a nation, as, and I don't like to use the word sin a lot, but I think that's what this is. Absolutely. Like, I think that sin is like anything that breaks relationship with, with each other. Like, and this has, obviously. So I think until we're willing to deal with that, and how our country was founded and how that still, the ripple effect of all of that, I don't know. I don't know that we will ever be able to move past that.
Yes.
Sorry to be such a downer.
No, I like
so hopeful.
like really appreciate that. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go to bed right now.
Yeah, that's how I feel sometimes.
I know. It's like in the moment, I'm just like, what are we even doing? Like, what are we doing? But we can't.
Right.
We have to be like realistic and
Yes.
mindful of, what's really happening, but also like we can't give up.
Yeah.
We just can't.
And we just have to commit to the work.
Yeah.
And realize that it's not going to be easy. But I think and again, we had, so Andre Henry was another guest of ours. And I keep going back to a statement he made where he's like, you don't need everyone to create, a movement or change. You need 3.5%. And so I keep thinking of that. I'm like, okay, it's not everybody, but we just need 3.5% of people to commit to this change and be willing to do the work for us to really begin to see some sort of change. And we saw that with like the civil rights movement and, all of these, big, kind of things that have shifted our culture and our trajectory. So I look back to that and I'm like, okay, there is a way, but it takes a lot of work, but there is a way.
Okay. That's nice.
Yeah. 3.5%.
I feel like I want to use that in like what 3.5% of the population in Chicago. That's a little much, but like, I don't know, just, I'm always thinking about like, well, what is in front of me, right?
Yeah.
It's not a, like, I will crawl up and die in bed if I'm
Right.
thinking about like changing the whole world. But like, what is in front of me? What do I have? What is like, who can I organize? Who can I inspire?
Yeah.
Who can I challenge? What would 3% be of the groups that are in
Right.
front of me?
Right.
Right? Like those are maybe manageable numbers.
Yeah. And I think that's where I've been trying to live lately. And it's like one of the reasons why we created this show is because you get so caught up in like the fight of everything. And I think that's important. But then I got to the point where I was like, I'm tired of fighting. And I want to just begin to envision and imagine the world that I'm fighting for. Because sometimes you can get so caught up in the fight that you forget what you're actually fighting for.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, well, what does it look like to create the type of world I want to see? And we were frustrated with like the conversations that keep happening around race. And I'm like, if I have to talk to someone else about why blackface is bad or why you can't say the N-word, I'm going to lose my mind. So like we wanted to create a space where we could talk about bigger issues and really dive into some of the harder questions. And so, we did that. And then so I've been thinking, in every space of my life, like how do I just start to work to create the world that I hope to see? And it really challenges me because sometimes, I'm so caught up in like all the things that are wrong that I forget to like dream about what could be or what I want there to be. Like right now I'm leading an organization and, I've worked for so many years with, in majority white organizations where I was always fighting racism or fighting sexism or both. And now I'm in a space where I'm like, oh, I get to like create a new space. And, if I'm honest, like I was like, I don't know that I've spent I've spent so much time like talking about all the things that were wrong, but what do I want to see? And now, I get to do that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like what does this look like? And, and then you also realize like how much you've internalized of all that stuff, and so I'm having to do my own work on that. But I think that just reimagining what could be, what is possible, the beauty that you want to see. And then how do I work to create that,
Yes.
And I think we can all do that in our space, like really thinking about what is it that we want to see? What is the world we hope for our kids and for the next generation?
Yes.
And how do we start creating that? Even if it's in a little space, wherever we have influence and power, even if you don't have all of it, like how can we do that in our little spaces? And I think, man, what would it look like if we all did that? And then, you started to see some change.
That is so good.
That's what I guess. Maybe I am a little hopeful. I don't know. But
that's your 7 wing coming to life.
Oh my gosh, my 7 wing. I don't have a 7 wing.
You're an Enneagram 3 with a 7 wing.
It's not even a thing.
What is one thing you're imagining? Like, what is one thing you hope to bring to your worlds?
Yeah, I think specifically with work right now, I'm thinking about what does it mean? Because we're a very diverse staff. Like that was really important to me. But I'm also thinking about, okay, going just beyond race, like what does it mean to be an equitable, inclusive space, inclusive of all different types of religions, of ethnicity, sexual orientation, all of those things, and really creating and even looking at some things around salary, like and how we talk about that and not hiding those things, and so that's like I'm excited because I have this opportunity to really imagine something different, because we get so caught up in the diversity conversation that we stop often at race, right? And then if we're racially diverse, we're like, oh, great, we've done it. But there's so many other things that we have to look at, just, able-bodied people and disabilities and all of that stuff. And so, and that challenges all of us. It's not just, we're not just okay because, I'm there because they have, a woman of color is an ED. Like, no, like we have so much work. And so what does it mean to be truly inclusive and to be a space where everyone can actually thrive? And it's really been challenging me. And even the way we look at, how we hire and realizing that for me, education is a privilege. Like I've been privileged enough to be educated in a way, but what does it mean to look at people with lived experiences, and to count that as equal, So I'm really excited about that. I'm excited to think through that and for things to challenge, to really challenge me. And so I'm not just like the one like saying, okay, you need more Black people in leadership, but no, like how do we go beyond that,
So good. Oh my gosh. I have no doubt you'll bring that to life.
I hope so.
No doubt. Episode 51, you'll be back and you'll be laying out the whole plan for us. Okay, good. I want to say one more thing about the Brene episode that was so good. She tells the story about, I think she was talking about being in grad school when the blonde woman with the ponytail like bounced in and sat next to her, and I could only see myself back in the day. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, now I hope that I'm the white woman she is, where she's just like scooting away from the woman in the ponytail. But anyway, she tells a story about like a white woman coming into the space, taking up all the space, asking the questions, really acting like she knew everything, believing all that. Yeah. And I could only like think of myself like when I was younger. I hope that I'm different now, but okay, thank you. But I can see ways I'm similar. And specifically like you were talking about like the journey in our relationship too. And I think about like how I'm sure like even when we met and early in my days, even here living in the city, how I would like walk into a room like thinking I owned it and that I would like, because of my experience, because of my education, of course, because of my white privilege, that like I would ask questions first. I would, know all the answers. I would make everyone laugh. Like woo is one of my strengths. So like I think that like, of course, mixed with my white privilege, like I just expected to like win everyone over. And I can think of times where like, right, I'm sure like fairly like testing me and being like, yeah, no. And I remember just being like, excuse me? Like, I'm sorry, maybe you didn't like see this charm in Will. And this lovely blonde ponytail. And you're like, oh no, I saw all that.
Very clear.
That's exactly why I'm responding the way I did. I saw all of that. But I think of that, even hopefully I'm like less of that now, but I can still see the ways, even like that I walk into a room confident, and I walk into the room like believing and expecting that I can like own the room if I want. And that is 100% my white privilege. And I want to be way more mindful of that. And I want to like, I want to like walk in a room confident just to be myself, of course. But like, I really want to be mindful to like speak less. And I don't know, I just want you to know that like that really like affected me. That was really something. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, and thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I think it highlights how different our worlds are, you know, because I think, for me as a Black woman, I size up the room immediately, and I know whether or not, first of all, it's safe for me to like show up and be my full self in that room, but or whether I need to shrink and, make sure that, people don't see me. And that's, I'm trying more and more not to do that, but you also have to be aware of like the warning signs you get when you need to do that because of just safety. So I think, even recognizing the differences there is so important, and it's like where you invite people in, and say, okay, this is a space where I don't need to say anything and I need to invite someone else to, or even just be the voice of support for them when they do speak up, and recognizing that, when a person of color, speaks up in a room that is unsafe, that is an act of bravery, and they're doing that of courage. And so maybe your role is just to say, I second that, and not to erase them, but to like support them in that. So all of those things I think are really important. And it's part of just our understanding of each other and saying, okay, how do I become someone who supports them, walks alongside them, and when necessary, puts yourself on the line so that they can be safe in that space, Because I've been thinking a lot about this idea of like the difference between being an ally and accomplice,
Yes.
Because we talk a lot about having white allies, but I think, an ally is great because you're like, you're standing with them. You're like, okay, yeah, I support you, but I'm not going to put myself in harm's way necessarily for you. But an accomplice will. They're going to be the ones that will stand in front to make sure that you're okay. I always use the example of, Bree Newsom when she took down the Confederate flag in South Carolina. What a lot of people don't know is, we know about her being up on that flagpole, but what a lot of people don't know is that, she did this with like a team of people, and there were white men down at the bottom who were getting arrested so that she could do what she did. So they were like the first line of defense, I
love that.
And so I always think about that. I'm like, that's what we need more of, is we need accomplices in this work. And people are going to say, you know what, I'm going to put myself in harm's way so that you can, that you can shine. And it's not about running away from that, but it's about, really diving into the fight with people.
Yes. So. I love that. You talk a lot about like in the episodes about abundance and like believing abundance for everyone. And I feel like that's like, that's what it is.
Yeah.
We're not as white people, we're not accomplices because we believe scarcity.
Right.
And that like, if I put myself in front of you, then I'm going to lose and what you're going to gain. I don't know. I don't totally know the logic.
Yeah.
But I can see how I operate from that, right?
Yeah.
I like barely believe there's enough for me some days. So what would it change to all live like there's abundance and there's enough, especially as white people? Like I also like not only love you and care about you and will put myself in front of you, but will also do that because I believe in doing that, there will then be enough for me and you.
Yeah. And that we're making things better for all of us, and it's not just, protecting myself,
Andre in his episode talks about passive supporters that really resonated with me. And he says they're mostly white liberals, which is awesome. And he says those are the people who say, I agree and I care, but I'm doing nothing. And I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Let's not be that, guys. Let's not be that.
Yeah.
Let's be accomplices. Oh my gosh, Chi, this has been so good.
Thanks.
So good. Great. So what's next?
Oh gosh.
What's going on next in your life?
I know. Well, it's funny. We're meeting, we're doing some strategic planning tomorrow for our second season of The Next Question. So stay tuned.
Yes.
Hopefully that's going to be coming to a computer screen near you. But I'm really excited for that. And, I think we're going to be working on planning some additional resources to help people continue to learn. And I don't know, like we're really excited. We might be doing some live shows. So, stay tuned. So feel free to follow us and, look out for those things. But yeah, I'm going to keep, have a lot going on in my job. There's that big thing, but yeah, I think that'll probably keep me busy.
I think that'll keep you busy and unpacking and
still unpacking,
setting up your new furniture, hosting all of us for dinner.
Yes, all those things.
Well, only good things ahead, of course. I just feel like like something has you've always been a superstar, but like something has just totally opened up in your life, and it's just like all forward good momentum right now. And I just feel this like giant, it's like the floodgates were opened, and you're just like this giant energy of water that's rushing now towards all goodness. So
thank you.
I can't wait to see what else happens next.
Well, that's what happens when you have great friends supporting you.
Well, I mean, that's not why I said it, but that's
but it's
totally
true. Honestly, it's true. I don't think that I could do any of this without. And I do think it's not by accident that I talked about my friend circle, but I think I could not have done any of this or be where I am right now without the support of my friends, and specifically you. Like, you've been such an amazing support to me, and so it's been great. So thank you.
Well, the same. Thank you for doing this.
Of course. Anytime.